Good morning, everyone. I'm Brian, Career Advice UK, and a happy 4th of July to my American followers and viewers today. Today I will be coming to you live for about the next hour or so if I get more gifts. Not to say that you have to send them, but it will extend the timer at the bottom. So it may mean I'm here for a bit longer than an hour. So if you have a question, please put it down in the comments below. Or we can try again with the guest spot and bring you on. As a guest, I only during this live take questions relating to career related. So anything career related, I will pick up. Anything non-career related, I don't. So, what type of questions will I typically take? Anything on CVs, cover letters, interview questions, what happens during an interview, live versus in-person interviews, or the one that I'm not a big fan of, assessment centers, and also one-sided interviews. I'm not a big fan of one-sided interviews. If you have questions about selecting your degree program, or questions about starting a business, or what careers may be impacted by AI, put those down below and I will pick it up. I've done some recent content talking about entry-level jobs and the ones that AI hasn't touched. And it is one that I just posted yesterday under the title of nearly 8 out of 10 entry-level jobs in the UK are shrinking, but I talk about the ones that aren't. So if you have a question, feel free to put it down below. I pick up all questions. If you do like, please share, please follow. And if you do feel inclined but don't feel those you have to, please send gifts, as it does help me to know what's resonating with people. And I'll do it just and prepare my content. So, a little bit about me. I'm Brian, owner and founder of Leap Forward Careers. I help those, thank you, Cole, for the share. I help those who are looking for and navigating the UK job market. I help with questions such as CVs, writing. I will write CVs for a fee. I will do interview prep. Hey, that's great to hear. That is so good to hear. So if you do, congratulations on your internship. So if you have, like I say, a question, and what I will do with, I run this website, leapstartcareers.com. On it, there are several different templates, CV, cover letters. There's also guides. Some are free, some are a small fee to download, and they cover anything from negotiating starting salary, disability, navigating the interview market and job market with a disability, preparing your CV for ATS, application trackware system software when you're submitting an application, how to handle gaps in your interview, how to handle being out of work for a period of time, how to handle all these. These are available for download, just to name a few. And there's some interview guides too. There is the book UK Job Seeker Playbook 2026 and also Career Change 2026 to help those who are navigating career change and also wanting some comprehensive information on the whole application process and how to navigate in the UK. I do also offer a few services. I'm right now offering free CV review for anyone that wants it. If you just want a free CV review, just message me the word CV on TikTok and I will get back to you. Likewise, I do offer interview preparation. Yeah, yeah. How can you make it? It is when you're working, Rudier. What you need to just be really. That's a good question. How do you make good relationships? A lot of it is people will think it's about being friends, and there is a certain point to that is true. But when you're working, it's totally different. Um, a totally different situation than like your own personal life. Yes, you can rely on some of it in your personal life and the way you make friends and stuff. But also, too, what you have to remember is this: relationships in work on the job is based on, to a great extent, on your ability to be delivered, your ability to be counted on, and your and again, a lot of this comes into being taking time off for sickness, absences, annual leave, appointments, and stuff. So if you're seeing somebody who's never around, it's not going to be really good in the way of developing relationships. And so what you really want to try when you're first starting out, in my opinion, is not to go off sick if you can avoid it during your first 3 months, especially your first 3 months. After that, people begin to understand um, and begin to be okay about it. But if you take off, again, if you do get sick, you can't help it. Just make sure then you're off for the shortest amount of time possible. Um, Make sure you're there, you're accountable. People can trust and rely on you. If you do, don't know something, the main thing is don't be afraid to ask. For clarification. But when you do ask, just make sure you listen, you ask all the right questions, and then be able to do it. Because the one thing they don't want, in the way of developing working relationships, is they don't want you to continuously come back and ask the same question or similar questions again. So, take notes, ask questions if you don't understand, get people to clarify to the point that you need that clarification. But, don't try to do more. Don't ask the same questions. Don't continuously ask. Try to work things out yourself first. So if you ask someone a question, make sure if you have had the chance, work it out yourself. Try to do it. See where you can take it. And then where you get stuck or you're not clear, ask for a little bit of support and clarification. Also, too, your job will know that you're starting out. You are doing an internship, so you're not going to know everything. They're not going to expect you to know everything. And I think a lot of times when people do college internships, they go in there with the wrong assumption that the job is I wouldn't say competent. I think that it is one of these kind of woolly words. How do you, define what is competent? Because, like I said, your job is going to know that you're just, you're working on your degree, you're going to have some knowledge, some skills, but you still really need to develop. So you're not going to be able to walk in there and do the job right off the shelf. They're going to do some training, probably give you a mentor, somebody that you can go to ask questions, to get some support. So what I would say is, good thing I would agree with the quick learner. So be somebody who is willing to learn. You're willing to learn. You are willing to take things on. You're not afraid to take things on, to try different things. And you also can balance what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. And if you say, I think goes beyond my skill limits, they prefer that you do that than trying to, push it past, and do something where you're not ready to do or not capable. So it's knowing your limits. I would say not so much competent, because I think that's probably the wrong word. What I would say is you're self-aware, you understand your limits, you know what your abilities are, and then you try to take those and push those beyond what you're capable of doing within reason. So if you know how to do something, let's say, for example, you can do some basic VB coding, but then if they ask you to do something a bit more complex that kind of pushes your limit, see if you can do a bit of research on what they're asking. How do you achieve this? And then give it a try. And if they say, well, you try, and you can't just say then, hey, look, I've tried this. You asked me to do this. This is what I'm able to do, but I'm not sure. I feel like I'm missing something. So can you help me fill in the blanks? And they will, because a lot of times if you're in the right organization, working with the right people, they won't have a problem with that, because it shows that you know your limits. It shows that you've tried, you put the effort in, and you just need a bit of help. And that's what they're willing to help you out. And again, that's the way you develop and work with relationships. Also too, when you're first starting, what I've always find works well, at least for me, is to go around and introduce yourself. Especially on email. A lot of times now in the digital age, you don't always get to meet people. And so you may just meet them virtually, and so when you always are talking to somebody new, just say, hey, I am just a quick introduction, I'm so and so, just started working on whatever team it is, doing your internship, and just introduce yourself, get people to know you. Hey, Shay, how are you? And so that's the way. I think it's relationships in on the job is more about performance and knowing your limits and the ability to be a leader. Hey, that's good to see you. And the ability to lead, the ability to know your limits, and to set a good example. And that will go a lot farther than trying to make friends and trying to do more than what you're probably competent at doing, because again, it is a work situation, and really the end goal is, at the end of the day, is promoting the business, helping the business to grow, helping the business to get more business, and that way, by doing that, you help to secure your future and the future of others. So it is very much, like I said, it is a in a way, if you want to say, a microcosm of life, but it is a different side of life, in the sense that what you're trying to do and trying to achieve is provide yourself with job security, and those who you work with by job security, by being able to perform and to deliver on time. Hey, Christian, thank you for the follow. And thank you, Caden, for the share. Thank you so much. So if you're just joining, you do like the feed, please like, please share, and please follow. And if you do feel so inclined, but don't feel so that you have to, please send gifts, because it really does help me to know what really resonates with people, what my viewers are liking and enjoying, and it helps me to adjust my content, and also along with adjusting the conversation. And thank you for the share. Oh, that's amazing, everyone. Thank you so much. And so if you're just joining, you want to know who I am. I'm Brian on TikTok. I'm Career Advice UK. On my other life, run a business called Leap Start Careers at Leap Forward Careers at leapstartcareers.com. It's a little bit early in the morning. And it is a business that supports job seekers. I don't know. It's mortician. If you're thinking like funeral director, mortician, usually it's a 2-year program to do it, to embalm and to run and to be able to conduct funerals. Hey, thank you for the roses. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. It is, like I said, it's only a 2-year program. But again, it is the hard side, I think, with a mortician would be dealing with the families and dealing with, because you're always dealing with death and families, and dealing with people who has gone through and is currently going through a very difficult part in their lives. And it is not so much having that technical and theory about what a mortician does, and how to embalm, how to prepare the body, how to run a funeral and all that stuff. But it is, I think, the having that very kind of sensitive, empathetic side to work with people who are going through probably the most tragic part of their whole life, and probably would be, experiencing probably the most traumatic part that that they will ever face. And so I think the hard part for some will be to deal with that, and to deal with that on a daily basis. I mean, if you think about it, and it's just it is, Lou. It is a typically a 2-year program. So typically, it is typically a 2-year program. And so typically you can do it without without really in the way of going to university. It is usually, it's like I said, about a 2-year, usually a 2-year program. It's done at usually colleges in the UK. If you're in the US, it is typically like junior college, or it winds up being an associate in the US and the UK. It is usually done at colleges, like a 2-year. So yeah, you can typically do mortuary sciences without a university degree. So yes, you can do become a mortician without having to go to university. However, to do it, to do it, what you really need, I'll come to you in one quick second. To do it, what you really will need, Lou, to have is a good background in science, especially biology, because it is a lot of anatomy. Yeah, okay. It's not over. It is, I think, it is a very brutal job market out there. Unemployment is, I believe, 4.9% right now. There's 707,000 job vacancies, and when you factor the unemployed and those who are looking to do like a career change jobs, you're probably looking at a figure about three applicants for every job, which means roughly there's 2.1 million applicants, 2.1 million potential applicants for 707,000 jobs. And that means being very kind of competitive. And what I just did yesterday, I did one that talked about entry level, saying that 8 out of 10 jobs are beginning to shrink, but there are certain jobs that aren't. And again, it's what I work with people is about being strategic. At least for careers, one of the things I do work with people about is being strategic in their job search. Now, there are certain jobs such as accounting and IT, to name a few, that are right now at the entry level for graduates beginning to shrink a bit. And I think there's a lot more to it. Some will want to say it's AI, but I also think the national insurance rises last year from 13.8 to 15% had a lot to do with it. And that's because when you're hiring entry level, the big thing about entry level roles are very risky, because in the sense of risk is talking about cost, because you have to really supervise, train, oversee people to develop people who are just are at the start of their career working at the entry level. With that said, what there is, and I talked about in that video yesterday, the 8 in 10 jobs that are shrinking, is that, oh, thank you, Jay, for the share. The one thing is that I'm talking about in it is this. There's certain jobs, like sales, and jobs that require very much that personal contact, that seem to be growing. So it is these kind of human related, where it is very hard for automation, AI, to mimic. Now, I don't always agree with that, because, for example, in retail, one of the hardest areas is, let's say, retail and hospitality. Yes, you do go around taking people's orders, helping them to find a room, work at hotels, and these really tend to be very economic, sensitive jobs that are really dependent on the economy. And with the economy tight as it is, with rising energy prices on everyone, businesses and people alike, rising taxes, rising fuel costs, and all this, people are just not traveling. And so I think that even though there may be certain jobs that may be a bit insulated from technological advances like IT and accounting, where the tasks are very repetitive and you really can do it, I think what it is, you have to kind of peel back a layer and take a look at what's really going on in certain jobs, where yes, it may be insulated from technology, kind of human ones, but these are also the jobs that tend to also be very sensitive to economic changes. What I would say to you is this: if you are looking for a job, if you have any advantage to do any internship work placements, any volunteering, any opportunity to develop yourself in any way, shape, or form, like going to college, going to university, picking up a few NVQ courses at level 2, level 3, do it. Because it is still, it is the development, it's the skills, it is the knowledge that you carry with you that is your selling point. So the more education, the more experience, the ability, if you can apply for internships, start applying for internships, anything, anything you can do. Apprenticeships too, also consider applying for apprenticeships. Anything you can do, it will get you the experience, it will get you the training. So I would say to you, it's not over. I would say to you is just start looking at developing a plan. Look at, developing a plan. Look at the options that are available to you. And I think, hey, Stu, hey, I was just kind of talking about that. I had the same thing. I was just talking to another one. Just said that no car, no money advice. It's again what you need to do if you're looking. You know, if you have no car, it means you're reliant on public transport. And one of the things I don't know where you live. Um, you know, well, yo, Jan, nobody. We don't go with that. Because you know it's difficult for people, and it is a very difficult situation here. And it is a very difficult UK job market, um, and it is really hard. You really have to really look and really be strategic in what you do, um, and you do, yeah, you do. You're right, and you do have to keep on going. Something will open up for you eventually. It is just going to be very a bit longer, and you have to be very kind of realistic when you're looking for a job. You have to be, you know, it is very tough. You're right. It is very tough, and it's hard to get through. But you do get through it, and you do move on. Um, and it is just one of those things. It's just learning to be resilient. Um, so yeah, so when you are looking in the UK, it is a very difficult um, thing to do because it is a very the job market in the UK has changed, and I see that, and I work with people on that. It has changed. Last year, you could probably got away with sending out your CVs to a bunch of organizations, and and use the same CV template. Um, but it is. I mean, it depends on how you define good. But again, I know it is, Jan. It is a. I think this is very much labor policies. Um, it is about in the UK with labor. It is very much about taxing, and that the government is this benevolent idea, this benevolent entity that knows the best how to spend and how to run the country. It is not. It is because it is. You have to really, I think, Jan, think about it from this ideological idea that if you start to raise taxes, as has been happening, and energy prices are rising, so when these start to happen, it means if you're building houses, renting houses, whatever, the cost to do business has gone up. It's simple as that. So when it starts to go up, what does that mean? Everything that you do, the items you sell, the rent that you charge has to go up because you can't make it as a business. You can't afford to get enough money to keep you motivated to stay in business. You don't have enough money to pay your employees to get people to work, um, and and to be able to keep operational. So to do it, you need to raise prices. But you know that if you raise prices, a lot more won't get sold. So what happens then is you start to find ways to get people to maybe rent to buy, and wages do go up. If you look at the public sector wages, I've done this, but I haven't done this for about a month or two. Um, but it is about 4.8% pay rise, and it's about 3.2 for private sector. So what you're talking about is basically pay keeping it in the private sector, excuse me. You're talking about pay keeping in line with inflation, so it doesn't feel like you're making much traction. Public sector, you're talking about pay that is just above the private. Yes, and because prices are rising, wages can't be paid because really what pay rises typically are coming out of the profits, and so if there's less profit because expenses are being met, you're not able to pay people more. So basically, and strictly in my opinion, we got here under labor. If you really want to look at it from a data evidence model, everything was going good. Growth was happening. Job vacancies were being created. And then April 2025, when national insurance jumped from 13.8 to 15% for businesses, with the threshold being dropped down to, with the threshold dropping down to almost nothing, and I forget what the threshold dropped down to. I think it was like 5,000, if I remember right. 5,000 basically means that the cost of hiring just became a lot more expensive. At that point, what you saw then was almost a total annihilation of entry-level jobs, the jobs that graduates who will be just graduating in a couple of weeks from university will face a very tough marketplace, because right now there are less than 10,000 graduate scheme jobs out there, which means there's going to be roughly 150 applicants for every job. Oh yeah, in the forms of contracts, yeah. And so we're talking, a very tough marketplace, and it means basically what you need, and this is what I talk a lot about, is being strategic, looking at jobs that closely match your skill set, instead of relying on the good old and we allowed it simply, I believe, because I think the Tories lurched too far to the left under Sunak and Johnson. And I think Sunak and Johnson lurched, in my opinion, Tories too far to the left, and the Labour and Tories started to look very much the same. And voters said, we are tired of the Tories, we want something different, so they brought in Labour. So I tend to keep it off of the political end of things, but sometimes there's a little bit of politics that overlaps with careers, and that's where I tend to get in on the politics end of things. So getting back to it, it is a very tough marketplace. And it is going to, now Burnham has said that Starmer and Reeves, as I understand it, I live in the UK, Jan. I'm in North Yorkshire. So what it means is Burnham, which I'll preface this, I don't have any faith in, has come out and said that, from what I understand, has said that Starmer and Reeves, as I understand it, got it wrong with the NI increases on business, and that it'd be something he looked at. But I have, it is. So I think in that regards, um, I think that if he does take a look at it, um, if he does take a look at it and does revise, yes, I think we will start to see job growth. However, until such time, I don't believe, I don't expect, giving that that Burnham aligns with Corbyn, very hard left. I don't have any confidence that he will lower any taxes, especially especially um, especially on businesses. So I don't hold out any hope on it. Um, hey Joe, good to see you. If you're just joining and you do like the feed, please like, please share, and please follow. If you do feel inclined, please send gifts, because it does help me to know what is resonating with Chloe, with my viewers. If you do have a question, please put it down, first come, first serve basis. I will, for the next few minutes, if somebody wants to ask a question as a guest, I will take it as a guest. However, it's a good question. I would like to do this full time, trying to get the like I said, Leap Forward career started, and getting it so that it is generating a bit of income, because I'd like to do this, but until such time I can get it up and running, and it is and I start getting a bit of traction with a few customers. Few customers where it is coming in, and it is, I'm getting a more of a steady stream of revenue. I'm looking right now in doing a bit of job searching. I work in the public sector, contracts management, with the universities, not-for-profits, and public sector. So I write contracts, review contracts, and advise on contracts in the research in commercial areas. That's what I do. So I'm trying to do it. Hey, thank you for the share. So I'm trying to get this up and running as a full-time business. So like I always say, head on over to leapstartcareers.com, because I do have a lot of stuff at very minimal prices on templates, guides, and whatnot. And if you have any questions, right now, career, still have about 23 minutes. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it down below. So yeah, so if you have a question, happy to pick it up. If you have. So one of the things that I do get a lot of in the way of questions to me regards psychology degrees. And I figure I'll talk a bit about this because it is time people are, entering clearing for university. It is, it is one that people look at. It's a degree that a lot of people will look at because they like to work with people. Because they want to help people. They think they watch a lot of TV, so they see psychologists and think it is something you can do at the bachelor's level. The reality is this: what universities a lot of times won't tell you, And what universities and what you don't see on TV is those who do, let's say, therapy, those who solve crimes as forensic psychologists. All these roles require a PhD in psychology, and you have to go through a registration kind of process. And it's different in the U.S. and UK. U.S. it is very strictly a university route. You can go through the university programs. You do your bachelor's. You move on to your, depending on the program, some will do a master's before doing the PhD. Others will apply directly to PhD programs. And then it is usually, if it's straight out of your bachelor's degree, it's usually, depending on the program, 3 to 5 years plus a year for your research project in the U.S. In the UK, there are 2 routes you can go. You do your bachelor's, and then you can go on to do your master's and then PhD, or some will go into the NHS and work as, get some experience, work as like an assistant psychologist, and then apply to the to become a clinical, to do their clinical PsyD degree through the NHS, which is all NHS funded and supported. The reality is there are about 6 to 7,000 applicants with only 6 to 7 with about 700 positions available, which means that most who apply won't get the job, and it is very competitive. And it means that it will be a very competitive route, meaning most people who apply for those few positions within the NHS funding will either if they get it, may have to move, so it's always going to have to be something about that, or you will have to again take a look at reapplying. Just lost a bit of my train of my thought there. So it is very competitive. So what do you do if you're not prepared to do the PhD or clinical doctorate of clinical psychology through the NHS? Now, some think that you can use the degree to go on to do like social work. You can teach. You can like music therapy, occupational therapy. No. HR, no. Because what you'll need to do, you can do the degree, but you'll then need to go on and to get the required training, certification, membership. So HR, so if you want to do HR, you'll have to get your CIPD certification. Social work, again, it's something both like in the US and UK, you will need to get to become licensed, and the only way to do that is by doing your social work degree. Teaching, again, is another route that you have to go. Still have to have your teaching certification. Occupational music therapy, again, you'll still have to get those degrees to be able to do it. So the short end of it is degrees in psychologies will, a bachelor's degree in psychology will open up the door for you, because what it does say to employers is that you're able to research, write, analyze, and communicate. But what it doesn't give you is the necessary experience, necessary knowledge to qualify in a lot. It is really at the bachelor's level. Hey, Mattel and Chloe, good to see you. At the bachelor's level, the bachelor's degree in psychology is a good degree if you are already working and you need, let's say, a degree to help you advance, it's a good one for that. But it is not a good one to leave university at the bachelor's level. Okay, yes, how did it go, Mattel? I remotely remember that. Hey, that's amazing. Congratulations on that. It is. That's a lot of hard work, and it's not easy. I know I've done my law degree, and getting a 2-1 requires a lot of dedication. Congratulations on that. Oh, well, that's good. Well, thank you. So now, right now, then, a lot of opportunities will open up, because really 2-1 in law is really what you need at a minimum. Full honors, yes, or 2-1. Anything less than a 2-1 in law it's really hard to come back from. So it does open up the route for training contracts. It does open up the route now for doing your master's and going on further. So congratulations. It will definitely mean a lot more will be opening up for you. So what is your next step then? Well, thank you. So what are your plans now? You got your 2-1. What's next for you? Oh, that's good. That's amazing. So you got your route planned for you. So what I would say to you, if you're doing the SQE prep, I didn't qualify. I'm one that didn't qualify because I just didn't see the route. I didn't see it was from a cost benefit analysis that was worth my time to do, because you can, especially when you're first finishing your degree. It is when you're finishing your degree. I didn't see it as qualifying. But what I would say to you is this: keep on applying for and looking for training contracts, because if you go into doing your SQE, your LPC, when you go into your LPC, about 40% who finish their LPC will graduate without a training contract. That's 2 out of 5 will graduate without a training contract. And I've known a lot of people who went on to do their LPC, and it took them like 2 years or more to get a training contract. So what I would say to you is continuously applying for training contracts and don't give up, because it is going to be very competitive, and it may mean probably, given the current marketplace, that it will probably take you some time. So keep on applying, and don't let it detract you. So go on, apply, and get something, because if you don't, like I said, it's going to be a couple of years, and probably it will be, looking for paralegal jobs or quasi legal roles, like I do contract management, and just start to look at those types of roles. So, hey, Michael and Faith and Sigma, good to see you. Oh, and Mattel, good to see you. So, you have a good one. Thank you, Maddie. Um, so yes. So if you're just joining and you like the feed, please like. Please share. Please follow. And if you do feel so inclined, but don't feel so you have to, please send gifts because it does help me to know what resonates with people. And if you're just joining and wondering who is this strange guy, I am Brian Career Advice UK on TikTok. I run Leap Forward Careers, a business to help those who are trying to navigate the UK job marketplace. Get tips and advice. Give tips and advice, and also to what I do on my on Leap Forward Careers found at leapstartcareers.com is I do provide for small or for free depending on the guide or template. I provide books on navigating UK job market, making career change, disability guide, negotiating starting salary, coming back after an absence, interviewing tips and advice, preparing your CV for application tracking systems, and a whole lot more. Plus, I do offer services such as CV writing, job search support. So if you're searching for a job and want some support, depending on the support you're needing, can be very minimal to a bit more complex. So typically, a very basic price would be, doing a bit of a job search, sending you, in a week, 10 jobs that match your criteria to have you look and apply for, and then on a monthly basis, for a half hour, talking through what is helping, what is working, what isn't, and helping you to refine that. And again, there's a bit more, can be a bit more complex in that, but again, prices do vary. So if you do have a question, then always ask. Always ask. I do, can do ad hoc, a la carte type of things, based on your needs and situation. So I'm, I do have like stated prices, stated packages, but again, those can be modified, and always open to negotiating some type of price. So again, take a look at leapstartcareers.com. And as we kind of wind down to the last 10 minutes here, I will be back tomorrow at 4 a.m. UK time to take your questions on job related matters. So what is your question, Toom? So what is your question? If you're wondering, what have I done? I hold a master's degree in law. I have ran teams. I've managed successful teams. I've done training. I have also on my own worked as a locum, which means I basically have to find my own jobs and do my interviewing. I have done a lot with interviewing. I've interviewed people, led interviews, written job descriptions, managed employee life cycles from the beginning to the end. And so I do a lot. And I've worked with people with disabilities a lot. When I was managing teams, I've had a few disability issues come up, managing and working with them, especially within the reasonable adjustment framework. And for me, I've done a lot. If you look on other social media, don't want to get dinged by TikTok by mentioning it. If you look for me on other social media, I've done extensive writing on disability, and especially the disability confidence scheme. I will have another article on that social media platform on Monday talking about the disability confidence scheme and the issues with it. So I would say, from the conventional standpoint, has always been, education, experience managing teams, experience working at a managerial level, running interviews, reviewing applications. I've done all that. I do know what people look for. I do know what, if I was interviewing somebody or looking at a job application, what I would be looking for. And again, it's all the training and experience that I have had that comes into this. And for me, it is a very kind of natural. It's a very natural, I think for me, a very natural move for me, because I do like to see people succeed at their jobs and helping people achieve their goals. So, if you do have a question, we're coming down to the last 5 minutes. I'm not in a rush to go. So, if you have a question, feel free to put it down, and I will pick it up first come, first served basis. If you are, want to extend, one of the quickest ways to keep me on is to, but again, don't feel inclined, is to send a gift. Gifts will keep me on a bit longer because the timer is linked to gifts. So it is one way to keep on. So if you have a question, I will pick it up. I will be back tomorrow at the same time. Hey, Ed, thank you for the follow. I would encourage you to do, follow me. Because again, I do have, like I said, a lot of, content. I would say check out on TikTok for Advice UK. I do have a lot of content covering career advice, and I do a little bit of my personal life. It's very small, and also I do some shoppable content in order to kind of help support what I do and help to get my business up and running. So what I would recommend afterwards, encourage you to take a look at leapstarcareers.com for any type of CV, cover letter, interviewing, job search, advice, anything disability related. Take a look and stop by. Hey Deanie and Lashing Vibes and Frank, good to see you, an Apple user, and AJ, good to see all the new people here. So again, if you have a question, drop it down. Like I said, not in a big rush, and don't mind staying on a few more minutes. If you have a question, drop it. If you do like the feed, please like, please share, or please follow. And I want to say, I will be back tomorrow at 4 a.m. for my next live stream. And so if you have any questions, and just to kind of sum up on what we've talked a bit about today. So today we've spent a lot of time kind of talking about the difficulties of finding jobs in the UK. and what is, why is it hard to find, especially entry level. And I kind of reference during it that I did a piece of content yesterday called 8 in 10 entry level jobs are disappearing, but here's what they're not telling you. That talks about, why is it difficult to find entry level jobs in the UK? Where is it's a good question. It really depends. Depends really. It would depend. It on the sector. It would be depend on the sector, who you're working for. I would probably say kind of I would recommend doing a bit of research. I would say, I'm in North Yorkshire. If people do listen, I am based North Yorkshire. If you are looking, I would say probably finger into one estimate. Depending if it is, software developer, probably, in the probably 35 to 50,000 range, maybe 60 if you're looking at at London. I'm waiting. If you're looking at London weighted salaries, potentially up to the 60 end of things. And that's because of the cost of living and stuff in London. If you get outside of London, I would say very much into 35 to about 45 range as a starting wage, but I would go up to the range I would go again for London, the 35 to 60 with about kind of about 45,000 to be kind of the average starting wage. So I would say, and again, with it being very competitive market with rising costs, I would probably be a little bit fluid on that, and meaning that being a bit flexible. So maybe it may be a little bit lower, 30, 43, and maybe low end 32. So I would say, if I would give you advice on starting salary, the range I would give you would be the 35 to 50 for London would be the realistic end, with about 45 if you're lucky, being kind of like the middle range. But again, when I'm giving ranges, what does that mean? It means that, again, depending on several factors, such as the sector of the role, who's the employer, the size of the company, the profits, everything, what they're able to afford, what do they typically pay their developers, really has a big factor on it. So it's, the best thing I can do is just kind of give out estimated range. But I would then say to you, is use these tools out there and do a bit of searching to find, if you can, what people report that organization pays for software developers, or or where, what do they pay for starting salary for software support, software developers, and again, that will tweak it a bit for you. And again, London weighting really kind of goes you know, and several different strands. Right? If you're talking very much, you know, central London versus like the, you know, outer London home counties, you know, where it may be less. So again, that factors into it too. Um, so it is, I think when it comes to salary, there's a lot, so it's really hard to give a hardcore good estimate other than, you know, saying probably 35 to 50 would be what I would kind of expect software developer in London. And that, again, like I said, goes with based on several factors that can sway it one way or the other. So I want to say thank you to everyone for joining. I will be back tomorrow, 4 a.m. British Summer Time, UK time, taking your questions on anything career related. I would, in the meantime, afterwards, if you want a free CV review to help you work out what's going, you know, what is working, what isn't, message me the word CV on TikTok. Just make sure your account is activated. I would also say take a look at leapstarcareers.com for resources to help you navigate the application process. I do on leapstarcareers.com also have a interview question test bank where it will ask you questions, you respond, and it will tell you the strengths, weaknesses, and what you can try to improve on that question. Also, too, you can do the reverse and ask that database how they answer questions like, tell me something about yourself, or why should we hire you over others? You know, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? You know, it gives you that chance to answer those questions and gives you tips and advice on that. So that's also available at leapstarcareers.com. So I will see you tomorrow. You know, thank you again, and thank you for all the gifts, likes, shares, and follows. And I will see you back. And check out Career Advice UK on TikTok. Bye for now.